The danger of TikTok porn. Wow, this stuff destroyed my mental health. Really, really bad. Because I would go on TikTok and, you kind of just looking for something a little bit funny, maybe a video of some football or something just entertaining, right? And then one day I just stumbled upon some sexual content and I went down into some horrible rabbit hole. It was bad. It was real bad. So the first question is it porn if it is on TikTok? In my opinion, you could go round in circles forever trying to answer this. It's unanswerable. It's subjective. One person's going to say yes, it is. Another person's going to say no. If you want my personal opinion, yes, absolutely. However, I had a look into the definition of porn and there were two alternative definitions. One was around nudity and sexual acts, and the other one was anything that is created to provoke arousal. So if we're talking about the latter one, then yeah, obviously there's loads of stuff on TikTok which is created and designed literally just to get you aroused. But if we're looking at, is it nudity? Is it actual sexual acts? Well, I don't know if you can actually find that on TikTok, maybe not. But that's irrelevant. What's actually going on is there's a high, massive reward prediction error. When you go on TikTok and you find some sexual content, reward prediction error is the actual reward minus the expected reward. So in your head, you're going on TikTok and maybe you're just expecting like a funny video. So the expected reward is kind of low. It's not that great. But then you're scrolling and you see some really, really attractive woman. Maybe she's dancing or maybe she's saying something in the video, like very provocative. The actual reward of that in your mind, if you then go masturbate and actually orgasm to that content, the actual reward is so, so great. So then there's this massive difference between the actual reward from an evolutionary perspective and the predicted reward, which leads to a massive reward prediction error, which means a lot of dopamine is being activated. So if we think about this from like an evolutionary perspective, you've got someone that may be like walking somewhere and they see some berries, they're really excited. Wow, there's this like nutritious food source that's going to help me survive. So dopamine is activated in that moment when they see the berries. Now our brain has designed to put a lot of value on the things that help us either survive, whether it's food like the berries or whether it is something that's going to help us pass on our genes, like having an orgasm and reproducing. But of course, our brain has got mixed up with the porn and the TikTok and the sexual content. And so it started to associate sexual content online with an orgasm. But that provides a huge evolutionary reward of passing on your genes. So what's going on? Well, dopamine is activated. And what actually happens is dopamine is activated in anticipation of the reward. So you go on TikTok, and if you've orgasmed via TikTok before, like using TikTok, well, dopamine is going to be activated a huge amount because it's starting to expect that you're going to get the same reward again. But the problem is with the berries, right? What happens is the expected reward actually increases over time. So the first time, this person's found some berries out of nowhere, huge amount of dopamine is released because they're really, really excited. Wow, these berries, I've never been to this area before and seen berries there. Now I've got this new food source. But then they go back to the same area the next day. A little bit less of a reward prediction error because they're expecting it more. And then they go back a third time. Well, they're expecting it even more by now. The berries are always there. Fourth time, fifth time. Eventually what happens is the reward prediction error reduces. Things balance out in terms of the dopamine being activated because from an evolutionary perspective, that person has come to realize, well, there's always berries there. I've always got that food source, and it becomes less exciting because dopamine is largely about novelty, anticipation, and the potential of a big evolutionary reward in the future. But if you are expecting that huge evolutionary reward, the reward prediction error will decrease, balances out, and that's how the brain has evolved to kind of keep things in check and balanced out correctly. Now, this does not take place with TikTok, as we'll be getting onto. So this is the main problem with TikTok. First of all, everything is so fast and quick and new, and it's just so overstimulating. The content is just so fast paced that it can be really kind of hard to consume it without ending up down this like rabbit hole of like just wanting more and more dopamine release because of novelty and reward prediction error. With every single scroll, dopamine is being released in anticipation of what's going to come next. Now, if you then combine that with sexual content on TikTok, well, that's a whole nother ball game. That's like, wow, like the amount of dopamine being released from that is just crazy, crazy high. In terms of the content creators themselves as well, what I think is really dangerous, especially with regards to porn, is how they have such a fast feedback loop. I've been on TikTok myself, and you get way more notifications and feedback and comments and all of that on TikTok than any other social media platform. And what that means is that you can then figure out, okay, what do my audience actually want? What's getting them the most excited? What's getting the most views? What are they engaging with the most? And then you're going to create more and more content like that. But in terms of porn and sexual content on TikTok, what the content creators are doing is often going to be like OnlyFans women and stuff like that, is they are understanding what the audience want more and more. And so they're creating more and more novel content. There's like this element of surprise because they're figuring out, well, that's what's doing really well in the algorithm because that's what people want the most. And so they're getting better and better at creating content that leads to the highest amount of reward prediction ever. The novelty is increasing and people are getting more and more addicted because more and more dopamine is being released. So this is really unexpected content due to the fast feedback loop. So what's going on with reward prediction error and TikTok? Well, the expected reward is not actually going to change that much because there's new content every time. The actual reward is constantly changing. And so we can't actually expect what's going to come next. How can we expect what we're going to see next on TikTok? Because we've no idea what's going to come next. We literally can't predict it. So the reward prediction error is really big. It's really high. It's a positive reward prediction error because our brain is getting an orgasm on a screen from all these different women doing all this like novel sort of content, and we have no idea what's coming next. Whereas with the blueberries in the example before, we know what's going to happen the next time we go back to that area where the blueberries are. We can predict that, but there's no prediction with TikTok, and that creates this anticipation. Dopamine is all about anticipation. It's about the possibility of something in the future, and so it becomes really, really addictive, really, really dangerous in my personal opinion. So really high positive reward prediction error. And then what that leads to is the brain's going to crave it even more because from an evolutionary perspective, the brain just wants to get these high reward prediction errors as much as possible because it thinks that's going to be really good for its survival and for reproduction. But what we need to do is start to actually see TikTok for what it is. What is the solution here? If we're looking at porn on TikTok, how do we overcome this problem? And I think it all starts with actually being aware that the porn on TikTok is an issue. So what's going to happen in the addictive part of the mind is it's going to try and trick you into believing it's not a problem. It's going to say things like, if it's on TikTok, it's not actually porn. It's going to say, I'll only look at this once and then I'll be done with it and then I'll carry on with my day, or it doesn't count and things like that. I didn't mean to look at it. I'm just scrolling on TikTok looking for a funny video, but really a part of your mind, the addictive part of the mind, is seeking porn. It's just the algorithm. It's not my fault. It's just the algorithm. That's why I happen to see this incredibly sexually provocative content. It's okay to use TikTok. Everyone does it, so that makes it okay. If everyone's jumping off a cliff, would you go do it? You wouldn't. But that's the sort of junky thinking that's going to come up. That's the junky thinking that came up for me in the past when I would look at porn on TikTok. And that's a big, big problem. The other thing with TikTok as opposed to like porn sites themselves is the reward prediction error is greater because you can be looking at football videos and just like funny stuff on TikTok, and then suddenly you've got this like sexual excitement thrown in out of nowhere, right? So how do we quit porn? That's a big question, and I won't be able to cover all of that in this short video because this really is about the danger of TikTok in particular and porn on TikTok, but I will cover some of the fundamentals very quickly here. And if you want to learn the like in-depth fundamentals of quitting porn, and that sounds like a bit of an oxymoron, in-depth and fundamentals, but yeah, if you do want to learn a bit about the Beyond Compulsion method, you can book in a call with me, which we'll get on to. But yeah, essentially the 4 steps I would say in terms of quitting porn are, First of all, you want to go beyond deprivation. People think in their mind, I can't look at porn, I can't look at porn, I can't look at porn. They have this internal battle going on. I want to look at porn, I want to stop looking at porn. You got to understand that internal conflict and accept that right now I want to look at porn because my brain has wired in a certain way. That's due to transcription factors like delta phos-B, and the neuroscience is very clear on all of this, that porn, looking at porn, is going to make you want more porn. And that's due to dopamine and the reward prediction error and a lot of the things I've talked about today. But you got to understand that you can look at it. You want it, you can look at it, and you can also make a choice not to look at it. And that's always going to be your choice. You're never going to have that choice taken away from you. You're always in control of yourself. The next thing you want to understand is deprivation. After understanding deprivation thinking is understanding junkie thinking. Junkie thinking is any of the thoughts, rationalizations, excuses that come up which try and justify you looking at porn. Things like, it's not really porn because it's on TikTok. That's like a classic junkie thought I used to have in the past, and it would just keep me in the cycle going round and round and round, continuing to look at porn. The next thing you want to really get to grips with is that this is a choice that I can make, and I have option A, I have option B, I've got this critical choice, and you go beyond indecision. No more this doubting, no more of this, should I look at porn? What do I do when I have this urge? What do I do with all this desire? No. Let's break it down to the simple fundamentals of, I want porn, but that leads to all of these consequences. I also want to stop looking at porn, and I know that will lead to these amazing benefits. Let's make a choice. Let's not overthink it. Let's not go around in circles, debating what to do next. Let's get it really, really simple in a specific script and make your choice. And that's what we do in the Staying Stopped part of our program, is we help people actually use a script and rewire and change their neural pathways so they can live a life of permanent freedom. But from this very simple short video, what I just want to get across is, you can look at porn, you're going to have junkie thinking, which are all these thoughts, excuses, rationalizations that are going to come up, and you're going to need a script or some kind of specific tool or method to deal with your urges. It's the urges that are the most important part, because it's through dealing with that wanting and dealing with that desire and willingly accepting the temporary discomfort that you actually rewire the addicted neural pathways. So if you do want a one-on-one call with me, then go ahead and book that in. There is a link in the description. This method has been working for clients since 1990, and it's brought to you by me and also my mentor and coach, Mary Paulus, who I've got a little photo of here. And she's a very close friend of mine now, and also my business partner. And she's been teaching this for a long time, and I'm just passing on her method, as for me, it was the only thing that's worked in terms of actually changing my neural pathways and living a life of freedom from porn. So I hope this video has been helpful. Let me know in the comments if you've also struggled with TikTok porn in the past. I know this is a big, big problem. It's something that really, really impacting my mental health, and I don't want other people to also struggle with this. So thanks for watching, and I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. Goodbye.